This is a really useful little piece of kit from SmallRig. It's only about $10. It's quite nicely made. It's plastic, but it's pretty sturdy. What you can do is, if you have a gimbal and you want to add a microphone and a light or two lights, you can just screw this in the gimbal, and then you put the handle in the bottom. You can move those up and down. So those are cold shoe mounts, and you can put in a light or a microphone, two lights, and there you are.
Whether you're shooting vlogs, promo videos, or short films, just a basic tripod can make all the difference. And I've tried dozens. There are cases, cages, and grips to help you get more professional, more stable footage. As well, filters like ND, polarizing, and diffusion all help to make your videos look more cinematic. Why do we need a 3-axis gimbal? Well, one reason is so you can do this kind of shot. If you're looking at using your smartphone for vlogging, then some kind of lighting is very handy. And if you want more control, you might need a camera app. What about microphones? I've timestamped everything, so if you're only interested in a particular type of kit, you can find it easily. Plus, I'm also going to give you some tips to get the most from your smartphone and these extras. Anyway, let's get started and look at some tripods. The obvious thing about smartphones is they're much smaller than a regular camera. There's a number of smaller, lightweight tripods designed specifically for smartphones. But you can also use any tripod. You just need a way to mount the phone to the tripod. But as the phone is light, you don't really need a big, heavy tripod. So I'll just zip through a bunch, going from tiny to less tiny. The Joby Grip Type 1 Micro Stand. Your phone clips in easily and you can rest it on a table or other flat surface. This is a pretty big and heavy Samsung phone, and it fits fine. Thing is, it folds up so small you can keep this in your pocket and forget it's even there. Then you'll always have a tripod with you should you need one. You can also actually remove the legs and use it as a clamp on a bigger tripod. But just be aware that it can tip over quite easily, especially if you have a very big phone mounted. I found this on AliExpress, which is why it doesn't have a brand name. And I decided to call it the Handy Vlog Stick. This is stupidly cheap. It's like £5 including shipping. It comes in two parts, the tripod legs, which are also a grip when folded together, and the clamp part where you put your phone. This clamp has a hinge so you can tilt it back, and this is perfect if you're editing on your phone and need some kind of stand. There's also a cold shoe mount on the top for a light or microphone, so you can take the clamp off and use it on any other tripod. And for £5, that's crazily useful, isn't it? It is made of plastic, but it's actually quite well made, I'd say. There's no rough moulding. It feels quite sturdy for what it is. This is pretty similar from Ulanzi. The legs also fold together to make a handle, but it's bigger and there's a small ball socket on the top. It doesn't come with a clamp though, so that's going to be extra. The center extends out like a small selfie stick, or if you just want a taller tripod. There's actually a whole range of these from Ulanzi at different sizes and for different purposes, like if you want to use it for a GoPro or action camera, for example. So I bought and tested dozens of these as well. Some of them are cheap and nasty and fall apart after a couple of weeks, but here are the ones that I like. But of course I'll put links to everything in this video in the description. Manfrotto makes good ones. They're not the cheapest, but you know they'll be pretty well designed. I have two, and this one has a hinge on it, so you can use it standing on its own, or you can put it on a tripod. This one has a lock on it, so it's extra secure. This is a small but very solid mini tripod from Manfrotto. There's a quick release ball head, so you can shift the camera to the angle you want easily. As usual, the legs fold up to form a handle. And now this is a tripod I use all the time. I find this to be the perfect size for all-purpose smartphone filmmaking. And when I went to Switzerland, I thought I'd buy another one, but they were sold out, so I had to get the size up. And then it really is overkill. But this size, to me, is like the perfect size. It's light and it's not too big. It extends high enough that I can film myself talking to camera standing up. And, you know, I'm over 6 feet, so I would say most people can find this tall enough for them. And lastly, this rod in the middle can be extended, and also you can switch it to horizontal if you need to film something below. Like if you want to film yourself working on something on a desktop, for example. The Manfrotto monopod is what I use to get crane shots and drone-style shots with my gimbals. You could get yourself a gimbal extension arm, but I find a monopod is actually more versatile. For example, you can shoot sideways dolly shots using the monopod, or you can just use it for steadier shots because it takes out the up and down movement. And also you can get a much smoother pan shot using a monopod. Mount the phone to the top using a clamp and then rest the foot on the ground. Make the pan shot and you won't get any wobbles. Apart from a basic clamp for a tripod, there are various other options like grips, cases and rigs. Certain cases, like those by Moment, allow you to easily mount certain lenses and filters. Grips can also do this as well as allow you to mount other accessories, such as handles, lights and microphones. Now, as I said, there's a good deal more cases and grips designed to fit snugly around an iPhone than an Android. However, there is a disadvantage to having a case or grip which fits your device perfectly. When you want to change your device, you'll also need to change the case or grip. But if it's a universal one-size-fits-all case or grip, then you don't need to keep replacing it. As well as for iPhone, Moment do a number of cases for Android. Options are Pixel, Samsung and OnePlus, but you're not going to find a case for every single Samsung model. As far as I could see, it's just the Galaxy S range and Note range covered. When we look at cages, we need to decide what we want to use it for. If it's just to hold the phone, get a better grip, maybe add a light or two, and a microphone, then there's quite a few universal style cages to be used with Androids or iPhones. If you want to be able to use the cage to mount lenses or filters, then it starts to get a bit more complicated. Unfortunately, it's not a case of one system fits all, because there are bayonet mounted lenses as well as thread mounted, and also different sizes of thread and different sizes of bayonet. Beastgrip produces a universal cage which also allows their lenses to be mounted, but they also have different mounting systems. On the other hand, SmallRig has cages for the iPhone, but they use a bayonet mount. So I have this metal cage from SmallRig for my iPhone, but there is no Android equivalent. However, SmallRig sent me this all-in-one video kit to try out, which has a kind of universal cage setup. It comes in this really nice case. So there's a cage, a tripod, light and a microphone included, with a clamp which you can use to hold a power bank, and also there's these handles for the cage for extra stabilization. There's a dead cat for the microphone and a shock mount as well. There's cables plus adapters for USB-C and lightning ports if you have an iPhone. The red cable is for cameras, whereas the black cable is for smartphones. Once you've attached everything, it looks something like this. So the tripod doesn't have much height, but it is very stable if you rest it on a table or something. It is made of metal like most of the rig, so it's pretty good quality. There's also a ball head here, and the rotation on the bottom is really smooth. So it has this kind of resistance, so you can get nice smooth pans with this. So you can take it off the tripod quite easily and use the grips. So having your hands further apart will make your handheld footage look more pro. So now if you wanted to use a lens, for example, this is a setup that I've put together with the Moment case and an anamorphic lens, plus some filters on there as well. The Beastgrip cage is universal, which means it can accommodate pretty much any model of smartphone. It comes with various customization options, including a mount for phones with big camera blocks. Beastgrip sent me a few items to try out. So there's the Beast cage, and I've got this variable ND, a Pro Mist filter, mounted over an anamorphic lens. So I put it all together with the cage and grabbed some test shots. The quality is really nice. The anamorphic seems pretty sharp to me, and there's just a subtle flare which is quite nice. So I did like the Pro Mist, but the ND does have a bit of an issue, which you quite often get with variable NDs that cover a wide range of settings. So when you turn it to max, you get a bit of a shadow in the middle. When I tried it inside, I didn't really notice it, but outside I could see it a bit more. So I just turned it down a couple of notches and the shadow went away. Why do we need a gimbal if our smartphone has good inbuilt stabilization? Well, because personally, I don't use a gimbal to make my footage more stable. I use them to create certain camera movements that you can't achieve simply holding the phone in your hands. A 3-axis gimbal enables you to move your smartphone in graceful Hollywood-style movements, and a gimbal can also be useful for vlogging. You could mount your smartphone on a selfie stick, but if you want the smoothest footage, then a 3-axis gimbal is probably the best. In fact, the first gimbal on my list is a selfie stick as well. This is the follow-up to the hugely popular OM4. It's lighter and it folds up even smaller and can just about fit in your pocket. The motors are pretty strong, although not the strongest, but it still handles my Samsung Note 20 Ultra, which is one of the heaviest Androids. The big difference from the OM4 and the OM5 was the reduced battery size so that a selfie stick could be included in the handle. At first I thought this was a bit of a gimmick, but when I used it, I actually found it quite useful. So you can do those crane-style shots without the need of a handle extension, and it gives you more creative options when filming yourself. But if you're not convinced about the extending arm, you can pick up the OM4 at a pretty good price now. So I recommend you get the SE version, unless you want the magnetic sticker for your phone. Personally, I'm happy just to use the clamp. The Mimo app, which is intended to work with the gimbal, is more limited on Android. Mainly, there's no manual control option, which would allow you to set things like ISO and shutter speed. But other features do work, like object tracking, which is great if you're filming yourself solo. As well, there's things like story mode and a programmable time-lapse option. This allows you to set points so the camera can pan or tilt during the time-lapse. Small fold-up gimbals are great for mobility, but what if you want to add extras to your smartphone? If you want an anamorphic lens and filters, then the smaller gimbals will start to struggle with the weight. Zhiyun recently brought out this gimbal, the Smooth 5, which is a follow-up to the very popular Smooth 4. What's changed is they have added stronger motors. Whereas the Smooth 4 had a max payload of 210 grams, the Smooth 5 can carry up to 300 grams. And in fact, I've found it can go higher than that as long as you balance the device well. So here I'm using it with my heavy Note 20 Ultra, a moment case and anamorphic, and a variable ND, which all comes to 352 grams. The Smooth 5 has a magnetic fill light. Use the wheel on the front to control the brightness. Switch it between front and back facing and add different color filters. One unique feature of the Smooth 4 was the zoom focus wheel, which they've continued in the Smooth 5. The problem is that to use the wheel for focus, you need manual control. And like with many gimbal apps, there is no manual control option in the Android version of the ZY Cami app. That said, there will be Filmic Pro support in the future, which should allow this function. Those small issues aside, for me this is a great smartphone filmmaker gimbal, with just the right balance between ease and speed of setting up, combined with being able to handle bigger rigs. If you want a more pro-level gimbal, I recommend the Zhiyun Crane M3. The motors can handle any payload, as long as your setup is balanced correctly. And if you use bigger cameras as well, you can use this gimbal for both. Having a heavier gimbal does make it less portable, but also reduces handshakes, so it's a bit easier to get smoother shots. The Crane M3 has a touchscreen on the front, so there's less need to adjust settings in the app, which is good because this gimbal has no app support for smartphone cameras. Personally, I don't really use the gimbal apps too much. You can change modes with the button or the touchscreen. The touchscreen allows you to fine-tune the motor balance really well. Plus, I love this wheel, which allows you to easily control the angle of the roll axis. While it does take a bit longer to get started, once you're done with balancing, this gimbal is very easy and instinctive to use. Your smartphone might already have ultra-wide, telephoto, and macro options, so perhaps there's less need to stick one of these on your smartphone. But here's 3 reasons why I still use them. Number 1. The main camera is nearly always superior to the other cameras. The main sensor usually performs better than the secondary sensors, especially in low light conditions. And it most likely has superior inbuilt stabilization as well. Number 2. No phones have an anamorphic option, which is my favorite for that real cinematic look, with a widescreen ratio, lens flares, and all that kind of stuff. And finally, number 3, conversion lenses add character to the image. Digital images are often quite sharp and clean, which can be a bit too clinical. That's why pro cinematographers often like using anamorphic lenses, because they kind of rough up the image a bit, and those slight aberrations and distortions just look cool. The moment has grown from making one-off lenses to providing a whole smartphone photography and cinematography ecosystem. As with other brands, it's easier to use if you have an iPhone. However, there is support for some Android brands. Personally, I have a range of lenses from Moment, both the blue flare and gold flare anamorphic lenses. I have the 58mm Tele, which is great too. Filter mounts allow you to mount their filters or filters by other brands. So in this setup, I have a thin case, a gold flare anamorphic, a 67mm mount, then a Tiffin Black Pro Mist, and finally a KNF variable ND. The Moondog Labs anamorphic was the first ever made for smartphones and was famously used by Sean Baker in his breakout Sundance hit Tangerine. I've shot a couple of short films using this lens with Samsung devices, and I really like the look of it. The character it adds to the image is kind of unchallenged in my opinion. There's various versions with different mounting options. You can choose one with a thread or with a bayonet, which is then compatible with Moment cases. So if you want that real Ultra Panavision look, then you can try a 1.55 times anamorphic. Now, this is a look recently employed by Quentin Tarantino in his epic movie Hateful Eight. This is one by US Keyvision. It's pretty fun to use, and it has a really distinctive look. If you want a cheaper alternative to the Moment Tele, you can look at this one. It's a 65mm lens and needs a 17mm screw mount. While it comes with a clip, another way to attach it is using a cage, but they often don't work with devices which have fat camera blocks. In fact, sometimes the clip also doesn't fit. But if you can get it to work, add it to your main wide lens and you will get some nice shallow depth of field, as well as a narrower field of view. It also adds a little bit of character to the image. One thing to note is that the lens doesn't allow you to add filters on top. This lens used to be branded by Ulanzi, but I believe you can find it under other names now. Using filters is another way to enhance the quality of your smartphone's video capability. Whether you use a manual control app or not, using an ND filter on a bright day will reduce your camera's shutter speed and make your video look smoother. A polarizing filter reduces glare and can bring out the true color of the frame. Another one I use is called a diffusion filter, which scatters the light. This adds a kind of misty cinematic look to your image, reduces contrast and softens areas of contrast that might otherwise look harsh and nasty. For example, around windows when you're filming inside during daylight. Newair makes this affordable kit which comes with a number of filters. There's a variable ND, which means you can adjust it for strength. You can also add a polarizing filter. These are 37mm filters, so if you have a 37mm mount, use that. Or you can just use the clip which comes with it. This is a 67mm variable ND filter made to use with regular cameras, which I can mount with the Moment filter mount. Rather than having ND filters of different strengths, a variable ND can be adjusted to different strengths. And that way you only need to carry around one filter. Variable ND filters work by having two polarizing filters, one on top of the other. And as you rotate one filter, the different angle changes the strength. This one goes from ND2 to ND32. So in midday sun, you might find you need to go a bit further than that, maybe an ND64. A downside of having such a wide-ranging variable ND is a loss in quality. It's sometimes recommended not to go above 3 stops in range, so like ND2 to ND8 for example. But I find that this KNF filter works pretty well. I haven't noticed too many issues with it. The thing is that all ND filters are going to alter the color of your image a little bit. This one tends to add a bit of warmth. I actually quite like the look, but if I need to, I can adjust it when I'm grading the video. Tiffin are well known for their Black Pro Mist diffusion filters. Professional cinematographers use these to add a slightly hazy look to the image without harming definition. They also create this bloom effect around the lights. Diffusion filters usually come in a range of strengths. And this one is a 1/8, and I think it adds just a kind of subtle amount of mist and diffusion. And Moment also offers a range of diffusion filters called Cine Bloom, and they come in a range of strengths as well. Now, I often use these filters by Sandmark, which are a combination between ND and polarizing, because I just find them so easy to clip on and get filming. It's just convenient. And also because they come with clips, you can use them on any smartphone. On the downside, clipping a filter on like this can cause some reflections to appear, especially if you have a raised camera block like on many new phones. So these are convenient, and I do like the video I get with them, but you do have to be a little bit careful when using them. I found this little light to be really useful. It's made by VGim, has a cold shoe mount so it can be mounted to clamps and rigs. There you just charge it up with a regular USB-C charger. You can adjust brightness and temperature using two wheels on the top. You can also adjust the direction of the light as well, and I just generally leave it mounted to this mini tripod so I have a light on a stand when I need it. I mean, obviously it's too small to light up a big area, so I tend to use it for B-roll shots all the time, and sometimes I just need a bit of extra light when I'm filming myself. It's got some diffusion on the front, so the light is quite nice and soft. Smartphones usually have pretty good microphones. There's no harm in just using the inbuilt mics if you have no other option. For better audio quality, just try to get as close to the mic as you can. To get the best audio though, you really need an external microphone. As I said earlier, most Android devices use the USB-C charging ports for mics. Personally prefer to have as few adapters for things as possible because, they get lost or you forget to bring them. So I just try to use mics that have USB-C plugs on them. So it's pretty cheap and easy just to get a wired lavalier. This is the Boya BY-M3, which is the USB-C version. I can plug directly into my Samsung. If you have a Samsung and use Pro Video mode, it'll tell you if there's a mic connected. That way you don't have to worry if your phone has recognized the mic or not. And this one has a 6-meter cable, which is really plenty for me. So, you just need to choose the length of cable that's right for you.
So using a clip-on microphone is all about getting the microphone as close to the source of the sound as possible. In other words, your mouth. So this is the Boya BY-M3. So just be careful about clothes or hair brushing against it because it can cause sounds that you don't realize are there until after you come back to listen to it.
If you want to avoid cables, you can go for a wireless option. Problem is, they're usually quite a step up in cost. But this little mic just arrived in the post yesterday, and it's really not expensive. But is it any good? So the wired Boya BY-M3 cost me £25 on AliExpress. This little mic cost me £26 on Amazon, so it's basically the same price. This is branded by a company named Ivivtor. Well, however you say that. I mean, you can find exactly this microphone on AliExpress, but unbranded and for less cost than on Amazon, as long as you don't mind waiting a few weeks for delivery. So this mic is, it's really basic. There's no controls on here other than an on-off switch. So you just plug the receiver into your phone, switch on the microphone part, which is the transmitter, and it should just pair automatically.
So then just attach the microphone part to your clothes. And now you're free to move around. So this is the quality of it. I think it's actually pretty good quality for the price. And you get this advantage of being able to move around and not have to worry about cables.
It also comes with a lightning adapter so you can use it for an iPhone as well. If you have a bigger budget, this is a Comica mic. This is actually the iPhone version, but there is the exact same setup available for Android. On Amazon in the UK, this is £150. With these, you can either use the transmitter's inbuilt mic or add a clip-on mic which comes with the device, or you can even add your own clip-on. There's also the option to add a second transmitter so that you can record two people at the same time. And in the Android version, you're even able to separate out the audio, so you can have one voice on the left channel and the other voice on the right. And that's really useful when you come to mix the audio later in your editing software. The Boom X-D1 has an internal battery which lasts about 4 hours before it needs recharging. Note that Comica recommends you switch off Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on your iPhone when using this to prevent any kind of interference. So the receiver and the transmitter pair as soon as you turn on the transmitter.
So now I'm just using the inbuilt microphone that's in the transmitter, so there's no lavalier attached. So now I'm using the Comica lavalier that comes with this kit. So just a test of quality so you can hear the difference.
Apart from the clip-on mics, another popular type of mic to use when shooting video is what's called a shotgun microphone. While a lavalier is omnidirectional, which means it records audio from every direction, a shotgun mic tries to record audio from one direction. The purpose of this design is to reduce background noise and improve the clarity of the audio. And how effectively it does this is really down to the quality of the microphone. The Seymour Wave S1 Lite Mini Shotgun comes with the SmallRig combo package I showed you earlier, but you can also buy this separately. So it uses a cold shoe mount, so you'll need a clamp or grip, which also comes with a cold shoe option. The mic has a 3.5mm socket at the back and a cable. If you have a USB-C phone, you'll need an adapter like this one that came with the combo package.
I'm just going to do a little microphone test so you can see what it sounds like with the microphone. Now if I take it out, so this is just with the Samsung Note 20 Ultra microphone without the SmallRig microphone.
The Rode VideoMic NTG is designed to be compatible with our media creating devices. It's a pretty useful multi-purpose microphone. Use it with a laptop, DSLR, or mirrorless camera or smartphone. The mic comes with a USB-C cable and a shock mount with a cold shoe at the bottom. So this is going to go onto any compatible clamp, cage or rig. There's an internal battery which should last over 30 hours on a full charge. When you plug the mic in, it automatically switches on and then off again when you unplug it.
So this is the Rode NTG shotgun mic. I've used it with my smartphone, as I am now, with the Samsung Note 20 Ultra. And I've also used it on my laptop for things like Zoom chats and live broadcasting. So it's a really good all-round, all-purpose microphone, I think.
So there's a volume control at the end of the mic. There's stuff like high pass filter, pad, high frequency boost, and a safety channel option. You can also use the 3.5mm connector to connect to a wireless setup, like the Comica unit I just showed you. You can certainly use your smartphone's native camera app to shoot great video, but if you want complete control of things like ISO, shutter speed, white balance, focus, as you would on a dedicated camera, then there's some apps that help you to do that. If you follow my channel, you'll know I'm a Filmic Pro fan. This is certainly the best known camera app for smartphones, and every year more features are added. Whether you like using this app or not, you have to admit the Filmic Pro team is dedicated to maintaining and improving this app. What I've found is that other apps might pop up and look interesting at first, but keeping them updated and current is kind of another matter. On Android, Filmic Pro is able to adjust sharpness and noise reduction settings as well, which isn't possible on iOS devices. And in the case of Google's Pixel 6 Pro, Filmic Pro allows a greater range of video settings than Google's own native app. On the downside, it doesn't allow you to use the log profiles. So apart from all the manual controls, there's also the option to shoot in various flat and log color profiles, but bear in mind that that's an in-app purchase. But just be aware that every Android device will function differently. For example, Filmic Pro might have access to the telephoto lens in one device, but not another. So you need to check first to avoid any kind of disappointment. If you like shooting in log and you like having an extensive range of options to choose from, then you will absolutely love MC Pro 24fps. Again, do not assume this app will support every feature on your Android device. If a feature isn't supported, then it's almost certainly because the maker of that device has restricted access to app developers. The biggest selling point of the app is the huge range of log profiles. The app developer also provides Rec 709 LUTs for each profile for color correction purposes. Of course, it also provides all the usual manual controls like focus, shutter speed, ISO, and everything else, white balance included. There's also support for anamorphic lenses, for fixed frame rates, focus controls, and loads more. You can also shoot 10-bit video if your device supports it. That said, if you like things quick and simple, then this app might not be for you. So I actually had this app on my phone for a while before I finally got round to testing it properly. And then I fell in love with it. Is it too much to say I fell in love with a piece of software? Well, anyway, the app gives you a pretty authentic, old-school film look to your smartphone videos. You can choose between various real film stocks, which the app attempts to emulate. You can add gate weave, glow, film halation, and other effects which enhance the film look even further. But the real game changer for this app was when they added the capability to import video, add the film emulation, and then export at up to 4K resolution. And this means we can shoot in log in another app and then import it here. I had so much fun with this app, I really started to imagine I was some kind of Martin Scorsese shooting Mean Streets back in the 1970s. And my last and final item is an Android app that's still actually in development. But wow, the quality of video you can shoot with this is astonishing. So basically, they've worked out how to shoot raw DNG video using a smartphone. Now bear in mind that the video you shoot with this app is really going to burn up your phone's storage, so it's not really for the casual user. But after Apple brought out ProRes for the iPhone 13, to my eyes at least, this maybe even looks better than that. And you don't have to buy the latest device to use it. So while Android users may sometimes feel they're not getting as good a deal as iPhone users, I really would beg to differ, because there's very little between the two systems, I would say. It's more a matter of which you prefer to use and which features are more important to you. If you want to learn more about smartphone filmmaking, you can join us on Patreon, where I've got all kinds of extras to download, including my 170-page book, Smartphone Videography Beginner to Advanced. And actually I'm using the Beastgrip mini shotgun mic here, so that's a little audio test to see how good it is. The thing about mics that are not attached to you, like a clip-on mic, is that when you walk away from them, the quality isn't as good. You start to get more of an echoey sound. But anyway, this will give you an idea of what this microphone sounds like. It also comes with a quite a big dead cat here, so I reckon that'll be good for outside in windy conditions. So that's it for this video. A big thank you to all the members on Patreon who support this channel, and I'll see you in the next video.